welcome back, everybody. Episode 3, and we are diving headfirst into, well, a weekend overflowing with FA Cup action. It's the 5th round, folks. 8 matches ready to go, and it's a real mix, isn't it? We've got the Premier League heavyweights, those big names, and then some championship sides looking to, well, cause a stir, pull off a real shocker.
This is it, yeah. The FA Cup, it's the stage where the underdogs can become legends, the drama, you just never know what's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And going through the material, I'm already getting excited. First off, VAR, it's back, can't escape it. And get this, most of these matches, we're going to see that semi-automated offside technology in play for the first time.
Except, and here's the thing, except for Preston and Burnley, their match, it's the only one, not happening at a Premier League ground. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Ooh, you're trying to, give us some foreshadowing here. I like it. But there's so much more brewing, right? This could be the year one of those, what do they call them, the medium-sized clubs?
Yeah.
Breaks through, ends that Big Six stranglehold on the FA Cup. Bournemouth, with the way they've been playing, they're a team I've got my eye on.
Look at their record. Last 10 matches, they've won 7. And their attack, statistically, they're right up there with Wolves. Even a bit better when you look at shots on target per game. Don't underestimate them.
You got me convinced. And then you can't forget about those individual player stories, right? The ones that add that extra layer of, emotion to the FA Cup. You've got Anwar El Ghazi potentially heading back to Villa Park. Romain Esse maybe facing his old team, Millwall. And then there's the big question mark. Isak, is he going to be fit for Newcastle? A nail-biter.
Each one a potential turning point. So shall we jump into some of these matches, see what we can uncover?
Let's do it. Let's start with our Friday night clash. Aston Villa going up against Cardiff City. What are your first thoughts?
Villa Park, under the lights, it's going to be electric. Especially if El Ghazi gets some minutes, if he steps onto that pitch. Just imagine the roar if he scores. Back in 2019 during their promotion run, he was a hero. Scored the first goal in that playoff final against Derby, if I remember right.
A true hero's welcome that would be. But Cardiff, they're fighting tooth and nail to stay out of the relegation zone in the championship. Do you think, will they even have the energy, let alone the players, to make a real go of it in the cup?
That's the million-dollar question. Their manager, tough decisions ahead, risk his key players and maybe make their relegation situation even worse. Or does he play a weaker team, basically wave goodbye to their FA Cup hopes?
A real dilemma for them. Okay, let's move on to Saturday. We got 3 matches lined up. First up, it's Preston North End. They're hosting Burnley at Deepdale. My gut, this one's going to be a defensive struggle, low scoring, tight.
You're spot on. We're talking about 2 of the lowest scoring teams in the championship. Add their goals per game average together, and it's, get this, a measly 1.8. Even when they played each other in the league this season, both times, 0-0.
Wow, that's something else. But what's the reason for these anemic attacks? Is it a lack of firepower up front, or are their defenses just that good?
It's a bit of both, honestly. Both managers, they love that pragmatic, defensively disciplined style. Preston, they usually go with a compact 4-4-2, crowding the midfield, frustrating the opponent. They've got Ben Whiteman, he's a workhorse, breaks up attacks nonstop.
So Burnley, with their high-pressing, possession-based game, do you think they'll be able to unlock that Preston defense?
That's exactly their game plan. Burnley, they thrive on winning the ball high up the pitch and then launching quick attacks. They've got a real talent in Josh Brownhill. He sets the tempo from midfield, can pick out a pass, unlock a defense, no problem. But Preston's center backs, Story and Lindsay, they're not slouches. Strong in the air, they read the game well.
So what we've got is a clash of styles. A real tactical battle, you could say. Could be a tense, low-scoring game, decided maybe by a set piece, or one moment of brilliance.
Don't forget, though, the pressure. It can lead to defensive mistakes, Right. In a match like this, one slip-up, and that could be it.
Good point. All right, next on Saturday, Bournemouth. They're hosting Wolves. Now, this is where I think we might see an upset. Bournemouth, they've been on fire lately.
They have, haven't they? And yeah, their league position, it might suggest a comfortable mid-table finish, but their recent performances, there's been a real, European feel to them. Remember, they beat Liverpool not that long ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they are pushing for a European spot, but the FA Cup, it might be a more realistic path to continental competition, especially considering Wolves, well, they're struggling right now.
Battling relegation definitely makes you think they might prioritize Premier League survival, although they did just beat Bournemouth in the league last week.
That's true. They'll be coming into this with some confidence. But Bournemouth's attack is potent, Solanke's in great form, and then you've got creative players like Billing and Tavernier feeding him.
It's a dangerous combination, but they do have some key injuries to contend with. Kelly and Stanislas, both doubtful for this one. That could really impact their attacking flow.
Good point. Good point. Okay, to round off Saturday, we've got the ultimate David versus Goliath matchup. Manchester City hosting Plymouth Argyle. Okay, let's be honest. On paper, this looks like it's already decided. But is there even a tiny chance that Plymouth could pull off a miracle?
Let's face it, Manchester City, they're a footballing machine. Plymouth, they're fighting it out in League One, 2 divisions below. But this is the FA Cup, right? Logic, form, sometimes they just fly out the window. Plymouth, they've got nothing to lose, and they've shown before that they can raise their game against those Premier League teams. Remember their performances against Brentford and Liverpool in the earlier rounds? They were impressive.
Oh, I do. It's that giant killing spirit we were talking about right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So what would Plymouth need to do to even have a prayer against a team like City?
First things first, they'd need Pep Guardiola to really rotate his squad. And even then, Plymouth, they'd need to defend like their lives depend on it. Every player would have to have the game of their careers, take every chance they get, and, well, they'd need a lot of luck.
Okay, so it's a long shot.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't be the FA Cup without a few upsets, right? Do you think, honestly, any chance Plymouth can make this even remotely competitive?
Well, they have been looking better recently under their new manager, Moran Muslik. Their away form has been pretty good, so you never know. Maybe they can frustrate City for a bit, at least make them work for the win.
I can already see the headlines. Plymouth holds City to a narrow 1-0 win, a moral victory at least.
Stranger things have happened in the FA Cup. All right, we've covered Friday and Saturday. Should we take a quick break and then get into those Super Sunday matches?
All right, Super Sunday, kicking things off with a London derby. Crystal Palace taking on Millwall. Bit of an edge to this one, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. We've got the Romain Essa story to follow. Young talent going up against his old team just weeks after switching sides.
And he's already made an impact at Palace, hasn't he? He scored a fantastic goal on his Premier League debut. Although he hasn't been getting consistent minutes this match, this could be his chance, to really make a statement.
Can you imagine if he scores the winner against Millwall? Talk about a storybook moment. He's going to be fired up for this one.
No doubt about it. But Millwall, they won't be pushovers.
Yeah.
Tough team, well organized, and I think they'll relish that underdog role. Their captain, George Honeyman, he's a real enforcer, leads by example, loves a tackle. This could get feisty. Speaking of potential turning points, let's head up north to St. James's Park. Newcastle taking on Brighton. This one could be a cracker, but I'm really curious to see how Eddie Howe approaches it. Newcastle, they've got a lot on their plate right now.
They do. The Carabao Cup final coming up, trying to qualify for the Champions League, the FA Cup, might even be a distraction, The question is, can they keep up that intensity across all these competitions?
And we can't forget about Isak. How much is his absence going to affect Newcastle's chances?
Mm-hmm.
He's been crucial for them.
Absolutely. Since he joined, it's been like a revelation. Adds so much dynamism to their attack, his pace, his power, that clinical finishing. If he's not fully fit, it's a big blow for Newcastle. Wilson, he's a decent backup, but he doesn't have that Isak X factor.
So maybe Brighton see this as an opportunity. They've been one of the surprises of the season, haven't they? Playing some really attractive attacking football.
Definitely. Well coached, clear identity. McAllister running things in midfield. Matoma, a constant threat on the wing with his trickery and directness.
Yeah.
And then Ferguson up front, he's been a revelation.
Sounds like we're in for a tactical battle here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap up Super Sunday with a classic FA Cup encounter. Manchester United versus Fulham at Old Trafford. A match steeped in history.
Oh, it is. Back in 1908, these two sides met in the FA Cup. Manchester United were on their way to their first league title, while Fulham, they were battling it out in the second division.
Wait, are you about to give us some FA Cup trivia here? I'm all ears.
Well, let's just say that match back in 1908 ended in a shock victory for Fulham, 2-1. It's a perfect example of that glorious uncertainty that makes the FA Cup so special.
Glorious uncertainty. I love that phrase. It really captures the spirit of the competition.
Yeah.
So could history repeat itself? Could we see another Fulham upset?
Well, Fulham, they're a good side, Playing with confidence, playing with flair under Marco Silva. Mitrovic, he's a proven goal scorer at this level, and they've got Pereira and Kearney in midfield pulling the strings.
But Manchester United under Ten Hag, they're a different animal, aren't they? They've been, well, a force to be reckoned with this season.
They have, but they've shown weaknesses too, haven't they? Teams that press them high, disrupt their rhythm, they can struggle, and Fulham, they might just fancy their chances of doing that.
I'm getting upset vibes here. This is why we love the FA Cup. All right, last match to preview. Monday night, the finale. Nottingham Forest versus Ipswich Town. What's the story here?
Well, Forest, it's been an up and down season for them, hasn't it? Early promise, then a dip in form, and now it seems like they're finding their feet again. But Ipswich, they're not going to roll over. Pushing for promotion from League One, and they've got some real attacking threat.
So you're saying Forest can't take this one lightly?
No way. Ipswich has got Chaplin and Ladapo up front. That's a potent duo. They've been scoring for fun. And then you've got Burns in midfield. He's a creative spark, can unlock a defense with his passing.
But Forest will be hoping to use that Premier League experience to their advantage, right? They've got some quality players, Johnson, Gibbs-White, Owoni. Any particular weaknesses for either side that you think they might try to exploit?
One thing to keep an eye on, set pieces. Ipswich, they've looked a bit vulnerable there, and Forest has got some real aerial threats. They might try to capitalize on that.
So set pieces, the key to unlocking this match. It's amazing how these tactical details can make such a difference.
All part of the intrigue of the FA Cup, wouldn't you say?
Well, absolutely. You definitely got me excited for this weekend's matches. So many intriguing matchups, so many potential storylines. Before we wrap things up, let's take a moment just to think about the bigger picture, the overarching narratives of this round. We've talked about, the individual matches, but what about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
The magic of the FA Cup. It's a cliche, I know, but is there a chance, a real chance, we see the power dynamics shift this weekend?
I think there's a real possibility we see some surprises. The Big Six, their dominance, it's been pretty clear in recent years, but the FA Cup, that's the beauty of it, right? The upsets. And this year, the Premier League title race, it's so tight, those top teams, they might just, prioritize other competitions.
Right. They could be, I don't know, looking ahead to the league or maybe focusing on Europe. So which underdog do you think has the best chance of pulling off a shock win?
That's tough, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say Plymouth Argyle. Now, I know, they're facing Manchester City. It's a huge task. But if Guardiola rotates his squad, rests some players.
Which, with City's depth, he very well might.
Exactly. If that happens, and Plymouth, they play with that fearless attitude like they have in previous rounds, well, they could just maybe nick a result. Remember, they held Liverpool to a draw at Anfield earlier in the competition.
Yeah, it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Okay, so Plymouth for the shock factor. What about those individual player stories we talked about? Which one are you most interested in seeing unfold?
For me, it's got to be El Ghazi back at Villa Park. I've always liked him as a player, and just imagine the emotions if he plays against his old club. Will he celebrate if he scores? Will the Villa fans will they give him a good reception?
That's a great point. That psychological element in these cup ties, it's often overlooked. And then, of course, there's Esse at Selhurst Park. Playing against your former team so soon after a transfer, that's got to be tough.
Especially for a young player like Esse. He'll want to prove himself to Millwall, but he'll also want to, avoid any rash tackles, anything that could be seen as disrespectful.
A tricky situation to navigate.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up, any final thoughts, predictions, anything you're particularly excited to see this weekend?
Honestly, I'm just excited to see how it all plays out. The FA Cup, it's unpredictable. You can't script it. We can analyze, we can speculate, but in the end, it's the players. They're the ones who write the story.
Well said. And let's not forget, VAR, it's back for most of these matches, and that semi-automated offside technology, we'll be seeing that for the first time. Hopefully it'll, reduce the number of controversial decisions.
Fingers crossed. But even with technology, there's always that chance of human error. And that's part of the FA Cup, right? Unpredictable, emotional, always throws up some surprises.
Couldn't have put it better myself. So there you have it, folks. The FA Cup 5th round. A weekend packed with potential upsets, intriguing storylines, and that unique mix of passion and drama that makes this competition so special.
Enjoy the matches, everyone.
We'll be back next week to break down the results, relive the best moments. It's going to be a wild ride. Until then, keep that FA Cup magic alive.